Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Dr. Linda Salvin, and she is beyond amazing. She's going to blow your mind. Hi, Linda.
Hi there. Hi, Peggy. I just got nervous when you said that. I got a little shy, but thank you for that introduction. I love the angel behind you. That's sweet.
Thank you. First question I have actually, when I was listening to you on Jeff Mara and your PhD, what is that in? I'm always curious about these.
Metaphysics. I spent 3.5 years studying metaphysics, and metaphysics is the combination of spirituality or religion with psychology. I have a very diagnostic mind. I'm very much like a psychiatrist or psychologist rather, and I can analyze voices and problems in an instant. I got the PhD in 2008 from the American Institute of Holistic Theology, which is no longer in existence, out of Alabama, to qualify and quantify my master's degree in public health epidemiology from 1997, which was total science, the big word today, right? And after being in a plane crash and getting hit by a fire truck and having the white light experience in a car accident, I became very psychic and became a medium after surgeries, all this psychic spiritual stuff. I was on radio for 18 years, but along the way, I needed to prove my scientific clinical self with all the words and knowledge I have for people that isn't just the woo-woo. So I got the PhD to put the woo-woo with the science, and I'm the first to be like a metaphysical clinician. Okay. So it's beyond psychic because I am very clinical with it.
Do doctors refer patients to you?
Yes. I've had some psychiatrists, a lot of chiropractors, a lot of healers, different therapists. I've had politicians, I've had everyday people, people living in their cars, students, deans of schools, lawyers. It's everybody. It's everybody. Because I even said this to my own therapist. I said, you can wear the white coat and you can be this professional, or you can have like some of the celebrities that are worth billions of dollars, but they all come in without love, money, insecurity, being overweight, bullied. I mean, we all have the same stuff in life, regardless of how big it looks on the outside. There's ego, of course, but I learned after all these near-death experiences that took me way out of public health, because I was on company business when the plane crashed, and that was my first premonition. I'll explain that in a moment. I was out of my body for 4 months, Peggy. I stand 5'8". I'm a big girl. And yet when the plane crashed, I slid down the ramp, had an out-of-body experience, heard a voice that said, don't do this, do. And I was given a message. I ran across the field. And here in LA, well, Orange County, south of Los Angeles, there's an airport called John Wayne Airport. And it runs along the 405 freeway, which is a main interstate here. And I saw the cars on the freeway. That's how close we were to the fence. And then I didn't know what was going on. So I panned, I saw the cars. I panned and I saw the beacons on the ambulances and, the rescue team. Then I panned again and I saw the terminal. So I knew I was in the airport because I was disoriented. And I panned again. And as God is my witness, I saw the plane on its belly, on fire, cracked in half. Now, we came from San Jose, which is about an hour and 10-minute flight from Northern California to where we were. So I was on company business doing environmental health and safety at the time for an insurance company. And my partner and I had flown to San Jose to take what's called ethylene oxide samples, which is in an autoclave. They sterilize the equipment for surgery, the tools, And we told all the nurses and everybody, please don't open the door, we're sampling. So of course we went back at the halfway mark and somebody had opened the door and invalidated our whole sampling process. So we packed up and went to the airport. And when you're on an airport, you sit and have coffee or something to eat. And right there at the window, you see your plane waiting, usually if they're on time, right? So as I'm facing you, I said to my partner, I said, doesn't it look like it's gonna crack there? And he looked at me and he goes, what are you talking about? I said, no, because Peggy, I saw a fuselage or an exhaust settlement line beyond the wing of the plane. And I thought, he said, you're just tired. I didn't think anything of it. An hour later, we're on our way back to Southern California. Second seat in the second row on the right-hand side of a Boeing 737 with 109 people. When you're flying, you can usually hear when you're about to land because the engines sound different and the throttle was happening. You hear the slow down as they're ready to come down. Normally you come in, you might skip, go up and come down. Well, this, we came down, we skipped, we went up, we came back, we went up, 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 up. Then we pounded. Long story short, the landing gear was stripped, an engine fell off, and the plane cracked in half where I had the vision. So when I saw the plane, I said, oh my God, I just survived a plane crash, because you go into shock. I mean, it's too much. It's huge. And all of a sudden, like a cyclops, I felt like something came out of me that was like 50 feet, and I could see life out of two sides. But that sensation lasted 4 months. Now, if you're familiar with the term walk-in, which I was not until a psychic told me I was a walk-in, I said, what's a walk-in? She says, when you're near death and a soul enters you to take over. I said, I was just in a plane crash. Well, this thing went in for 4 months. And I just told everybody at the paramedic station, I said, I'm split in half. They said, Gurney, they thought I was nuts. And I told every doctor, I'm split in half. Nobody understood it but this woman. And she said, whatever entered me was a psychic. I said, I'm not a psychic. Well, in the last 40 years, I've built a name as a psychic and a healer and a medium and a talk show host. But it was the beginning of something I never looked for, asked for, wanted. Maybe was curious spiritually, but not to the point of becoming, right? So that was the beginning for me. But I had a premonition in the airport coffee shop an hour and 10 minutes prior to the incident. That's how it started. So the psychic stuff became really, really intense. That day, I started hearing voices I'd never heard before. It would tell me to go someplace, and I'd run into somebody I was supposed to meet. I started putting the synchronicity of life together over several months, and I was scared to death, and things happened over the years. I can't really badmouth my attorney, but I wish it had been a different ride with him, because I lost a lot of opportunity because of the case and what happened to me, including losing my job. But it's a long time ago. And as I got into radio, or first I should say, I got into the Psychic Friends Network with Dionne Warwick back in the 90s. They did infomercials. Linda Georgian was with Dionne back then, and it was nationwide in the United States and Canada on cable all night long. And I had been working for the Psychic Line, and they asked me to be in the infomercial. So that was the beginning of my, quote, bigger fame and recognition. And from there was a big rock station here in LA that was hiring psychics. I thought I might as well apply. And the first time around, they said no. Second time I got in, and they had 300 applicants, and I was chosen. And a guy named Fred, who's still my mentor and friend today after 28 years, he does all the voices on my shows. And after that segment of 6 months ended, he said, you need your own show. Nobody was doing psychic stuff back then. Nobody, I mean, this is AM and FM radio. This is before the internet, Peggy. Internet was 1996. We're back in 1994. Okay, that was FM. And certainly no psychics, because the FCC said no psychics. And there's still some stations today that will not take a psychic. But he found me a station. I learned how to do my own show. I went from 1 hour a week, and then I went to 2 hours a week, and the show was so busy. I was recruited from a national syndicator, and I went to 2 hours a night, and then I went to 2 nights a week, and then I was 5 nights a week, and I built the biggest psychic show around. And then I branched into different AM, FM stations and syndicated, and ended up here in Los Angeles on what was CBS's KLSX 97.1 Free FM. Howard Stern was there years and years and years and years ago before Sirius. It was a huge station for talk, but CBS got rid of their talk in 2009. Just as YouTube was hitting and the internet was just there, so it was that synchronicity. Just as FM was going out, the internet was coming up. I was told to do YouTube in 2009, but I had just lost the job. And then my mother passed away 3 weeks later. And to think of something brand new that made no sense to me was not like my priority. But now 13 years later, I'm like, gosh, I missed the boat. It's never too late. It's just I was at the beginning but didn't know it. So I got the PhD because I was on radio for many, many years, and I did a TV infomercial that ran for several months on my Candle Magic line. And it was just more me, not to be taken lightly as, quote, a psychic, because I really don't like the word psychic. It's so cheesy. You know, in big cities, I don't know where you are, but we have them on every corner, psychic, you know, come in, get your palm read, do the candles, and they're all rip-off artists.
I'm in Southeast Ohio. They would burn a cross in my yard if I put up psychic.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a stigma, but those of us that have a gift from the near death as yourself, it's a whole nother reality. So having had a master's in public health from the University of Michigan, go blue, Wolverines versus the Ohio State people, right? Sorry. I had this science degree, a bachelor's in health ed, and yet now I'm doing psychic and radio. What am I supposed to do? So I kept rebranding. And then I found this school. I kept going back and forth and studying their curriculum and different alternative schools. And I chose this one. I got the PhD. It was a very difficult course. I still have the books, I still have the test, but I passed and got the degree in 2008. So I've been Dr. Linda ever since.
Interesting. Because
was
you
a
don't
journey.
hear of degrees like that very often.
No, you don't. And I, not to brag, but I'm going to brag. Back in April, I was in Las Vegas at a health conference. Somehow last year I was nominated to some organization in India that puts on events in Dubai and in the United States. And I was nominated for all the work I have done between health and spirit as a metaphysician and on radio. I got an award in healthcare. I was one of the top 100 leaders last year. And this past year, they gave me another one. So I'm acknowledged for integrating the woo-woo with the science and helping people. It's more than just, is he going to call on Thursday? Is this going to be my future husband? I go deeper into soulmates, twin souls, karma, past lives, near-death experiences, God, white light, souls, entities, negative, positive. And metaphysics is the opposite of physics. So if a doctor, there's one chiropractor I work with constantly, who's in Northern California, and he sends me people. I work by phone. Actually, one of his patients, who's a urologist, an MD, is calling me tonight for his second session because I have a gift where I have people lay down, and through breathing, color, and words, I see their organs, like their liver, kidneys, tissues, bladder, breast, brain, ears. I just get into where the love is locked, or the resentment, or if they've been battered, or if they've been abused, or if they've been molested, or they've been whatever emotion is stuck, trauma. I remove it and get them into peace. And then I don't know how many hundreds of these I've done since 1992, maybe. There's only one person that said it didn't work. And he's a healer. He's in Iowa. I think he just moved to Colorado. And I was stunned. I said, what do you mean he didn't feel it? But, you know, not everybody's going to get it. But I know I did it. And he probably didn't realize what I did. I don't know. But I get into the organs because our tissues and our organs hold emotion. And most of our disease starts in the gut and the spine, and then everything else goes around. So I help people metaphysically from the inside out versus just the outside world. And I'm not giving a pill to fix or a shot to fix like most doctors will, but that's their profession. I come in with nutrition, spirituality, maybe meditation, maybe technique. But I also see my prescription for your soul is using spiritual candles. I do candle magic, which helps people. So it's just, I fell into all these weird things. It's not something I wanted to do, but it evolved. Hold on, somebody's calling. I didn't turn off all the phones.
Now, you didn't get hurt in the plane crash, correct?
Oh, yes, I did. I had back, neck, knee, and elbow injuries. I was in the hospital for 4 days. Okay. Then I went back to my parents' house for a couple of months. I couldn't function. No. And then on top of it, with that out of body thing, or trying to understand the psychic, whatever had happened to me, I couldn't function. I took time off of work, and I was off work for 9 months. And then by the time I was allowed to go back to work per the doctor, therapy, they let me go. So I freaked out because I could have done other things, or God was leading me into a different world, and I had to go back to work because it was just part of the case on top of what you do. And I didn't know if I could change. And it was a very conflicting time. It was very painful. I was 27. And if you know anything about the age of 27, there's books and there's lots of articles online where it's a big age where, like, Janis Joplin or Jim Morrison, a lot of the celebrities would always die at age 27. Big trauma. And I had mine at 27. Just like as star people, we usually have it around 5.
What do you make of that you had this experience as you coming down the runway, right, from the plane, and that you saw the plane as if it was upside down?
I had the premonition. You mean the premonition?
Like, my understanding is, like, you had this out of body experience.
Yeah, after I slid down the ramp, the plane
Yeah.
had already crashed. We had 90 seconds to get off before we asphyxiated, meaning we would have suffocated.
Okay.
Okay, so we crashed, a lot of bumping around. So we're on the pavement, then on the grass. And I thought, oh my God, we're going to die. I grabbed both men's arms. I was sitting between 2 men. And I put my head down, so we're going to die. And the plane stopped out like on a dime. It finally stopped. I thought I didn't know what, I thought we're going to die. So then I went to the door, and the stewardess said, I said, where are the stairs? Because there were no stairs. So she tapped me on my back and just pushed me and went down that slide, that raft looking thing, hit the ground on my knees and just ran. And the rest I told you about the panning. And then I saw the plane on its belly. A Boeing 737 is a huge plane. It's an average sized plane, 109 people, we all survived. And then I interviewed a lot of them, and a lot of them didn't want to talk to me because of the trauma and the stress and everything. But I have all the notes I took back then.
So what was that like? You were like in between the two worlds, like out of body.
Yeah, frightening. I didn't know anything about it. I had no one to talk to. They thought I was nuts. Nobody believed me. I felt it. I saw it. My sister, because I would walk around with this energy coming out of the left side of my head for 4 months. It was like you go to the pier at some of the oceanfront carnivals and festivals, and there's always the bumper cars, right? And they move around with those big steel bolts or posts that are attached to the electricity above, and they move everything around. That's what I felt like. I was attached to the other side like a bumper car, and they were just moving me around. I lost total control. And then I would get upset and scared because I didn't know anything about it. I split. It took 6 years. 6 years like that to finally start to feel grounded, and the worst of the PTSD. I still have PTSD. Doesn't go away.
And then a year after, you got hit by a fire truck?
Yeah. I was on my way to UCLA for a job interview in epidemiology. I knew I had to go back to work. And then a fire truck hit my car, smashed my front end. I braced. You've been in fearful situations with your car, so you know your body automatically jolts and braces. So I ended up with neck and arm injuries. I had surgery on the arm about 25 years after. About 4 years ago, I had all the surgery to fix the muscle problems that happened from that injury. And I remember the captain got out of his truck. I kept honking. They didn't stop. We were on an incline. And he goes, "You okay, ma'am?" I said, "Oh, yeah. Last year I'm in a plane crash and I'm getting hit by fire trucks." It became a joke, but it was horribly painful. But I had another out-of-body experience, Peggy. It took me to another level. It's like God, the universe, the other side was, in retrospect, initiating me for what I've become. But going through it, I had no clue. Had no idea what it was. And remember, pre-internet, you couldn't just go researching all this stuff. This is now 1982. Plane crash was 81. Internet was 96. Hello? There was no one to talk to. Research, Google didn't exist.
Yeah. I find that interesting that you said it's like God was initiating you for what you have become. Because I didn't
Yeah.
remember my 5-year-old drowning until after my second NDE, just like a few months
It
after.
woke you up. Well, at 5, you're not going to remember everything. And it's probably good that you didn't. So you weren't traumatized. You may have been traumatized growing up and not known it. Or you may have been awake more than the average kid, like you never felt like you belonged, or was on the outside looking in or something, and just didn't really connect to the average student, right? Or group or whatever. And you had probably already awakened, but didn't consciously know it. And then until the second time, it brought back the memory and helped you grow into how you've opened to help people. A lot of people don't get this. They think we're nuts. And I always tell people, if I hadn't lived it, I think this was a nutty story too, but I
Right.
lived it.
Definitely, I would. So then you had a third one a couple years after that.
I did. So here's the dates: 1981, February 17th, 1981. You can look it up as Air California. It's all over the internet. Boeing 737, flight 336. Then a year later, I got hit by the fire truck. And then 2 years later, in 1984, I was on my way home from working. I was working in the entertainment industry at the time. And I was searching. I didn't know what to do. And I was a secretary. I was bored. And I was on my way home. And it was a bad, rainy night. And I'm going southbound. And a Pinto went through the red light. Oh, no, all the lights were out. There was no red light. And I broadsided this car in the intersection. And as I was spinning my car, I just said, God, I just want to go home because I didn't know what was going on. And the car stopped. I found the brake. And you may get chills, or your listeners may get chills, but God is my witness. A white light went from my head to the ceiling of the car and into the heavens. And the same voice that spoke to me after the plane coming down the ramp said, you can come with us now or stay and do. And I was given a message. And the paramedics came with the jaws of life and got me out of the car. And I was on the street. And I said, they want me off the planet. They want me off the planet. Because I didn't know what was going on. One thing after another, like, what the hell's going on? So I got taken to UCLA emergency, and I started calling people to come pick me up. And another accident, Linda, another accident, Linda. Everybody thought it was a joke. And it got to the point, like, it was like, yeah, whatever, Linda. But now on the other side of it is this whole morphed being. Took a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of therapy, a lot of prayer, a lot of growth, a lot of battery, name calling, getting pushed around because psychics aren't the most favored in a lot of cultures or religions. Oh, I can't talk to you. My priest said you're doing the work of the devil. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So people used to put me down. I said, well, if God didn't want me to have the gift, why'd he give it to me? It's not about religion. Spirituality is not religion, as you know and I know. It just is. It's a whole nother life.
So you lost your job because with environmental, whatever?
I was doing environmental health and safety at an insurance company. I went back when I was after 9 months after off, and they said, we have to let you go to do corporate reorganization, which was a lie. But I had declared, I got workers' comp. They didn't want to pay, but I was on company business. I didn't ask for it. So they let me go, and I didn't know what to do. And then I would go on interviews, or I got back into the healthcare industry a little bit, or I worked for a local college, but it didn't feel right. And then I went to the entertainment industry, and I knew I needed to do more than just be a secretary. And then I kept hearing in my brain the definition of health, which had been impounded in my head since undergrad school, where health is the state of mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. I thought, what am I going to do with this? Nobody's doing spiritual health. Well, what would I do with spiritual health? So it was in the back of my mind. And this was before the holistic movement really started to grow. And you're talking the 80s. It was just the beginning of all this. So I guess I bounced around, and finally well, there's more to the story. You want to hear it? I was doing AIDS education for kids on parole in the California Youth Authority, which is kids in prison under 25. And one night on the way home from a friend performing, I got in a horrible accident, another spin out. And I had so much pain, I had to quit that job, but it was almost like a blessing in disguise because I hated the job. And it was almost like the universe got me out of it, but there was another jolt psychically. Then I went back to my music because I started playing music when I was 9. and write songs. And I started playing around town. I thought I'll just do my music. And one night I was performing and I got really sick. I passed out in the bathroom. I was hemorrhaging, had a lot of tumors, went and had a DNC. And the doctor said, you're probably going to need a hysterectomy. And I stood up in the hospital bed. I said, I'm not going to be a statistic. Well, 2 months later, I had a choice to either be a statistic of sterility or death. I was that close. So I had the hysterectomy, but it was a month later, all this energy started coming out of my hands that I'd never had before. And I started healing people just out of the blue. And one girl, the first girl I really worked on, had 26 personality disorders. It's called multiple personality disorder. She came to me and I put her back into one personality. I still have the tape, the testimonial from 1992. Her mother flew in from Scottsdale, Arizona to thank me. I have no idea where the number is after all these years. I wish I'd kept it. But it started my journey as a healer. Fast forward, by 1996, I had this lump on my side, the flank, and I asked a doctor. We were all at my mom and dad's house because my grandmother just died. So there were a bunch of people, including a lot of doctors. I said, is this from yoga? Because I thought I was doing so much yoga, I developed a lump. No, it's a tumor. Get into the office on Monday. Long story short, Peggy, starting in 1996, 97 and 99, but the first one, I had 100 tumors removed from my hips and thighs and my side. I did not know until one day I was sitting at my desk after doing a reading on the phone, and I just get my hands on my lap, like, oh, I'm tired, and I saw the imprints of the scars from the surgery as if it was my fingers and thumb, and I figured it out. I was putting all this negative energy, taking from people, I put it back in my body. So after I had all these tumors removed, I became a medium and I started talking to dead people. Didn't ask for it. It just, all these weird changes happened.
I would love to know the percentage of women back in the 80s that had to get hysterectomies.
Most.
All my friends had them in their 20s.
I was 37. That's what they did. It wasn't today's technology. And when I was so loaded with tumors marbleized in my uterus, there's no way I would have ever born a kid. And I was hemorrhaging and the pain, and it wasn't just PMS. I mean, it was horrible.
Had you had kids prior to that?
No, I had walked away from a couple of proposals. So I hadn't. The doctor asked me how important it was to have kids, and I got scared. I said, why? Because I had recently split with somebody I thought I was going to marry, and I got scared. I left him. My sister thought I was nuts. I even wrote him a letter like 4 years ago. I don't think you really understand why I left, but it was more fear than love because he intimidated me so much. He was gorgeous, big guy in the entertainment. I mean, he was everything I thought I would want. And because of the accidents and my fragmentation, there was no way I could be present. It was like right guy, wrong time. I couldn't explain how messed up I felt. I couldn't back then. But I gave up the potential for having children. Otherwise, I was going to die because I was losing so much blood. And then I just threw myself in my work. So from the man that came to my apartment at the time in 96 wanted a reading and asked me to bring in his wife who had just passed away. I said, I don't do that. And then within moments, my face contorted and changed, and as her voice came out and words came out, I called a now deceased psychic in town, a medium. And she said, welcome to the world of transmediumship. I'm like, what does that mean? And for 22 years, I channeled dead people. I have boxes of testimonies. It's going in a book. But it got to the point I literally retired in 2018. I said, no more. No more. It was killing me, hurting me. My face changed, my weight changed, my whole existence changed. When you're channeling, at least me, I go so into the other side that I lose my consciousness for reality. We live in a very physical world, and trying to be spiritual in a physical world, as you know, is that balance, because you see both sides, and we're here to teach. But you still got to pay bills. You still got to show up. You can't act like a lunatic all the time talking to the dead. Some people do. I didn't want it.
How did you turn it off?
People started booking. I said, I can't do it. I still hear someone, oh, so-and-so died, and I pick up on it immediately. And then I just try real hard to ground myself. But I get right here on the right side of my head, it's like a little funnel opens and I go directly to that source. Like I don't do sensationalism. Don't ask me to bring in Marilyn Monroe or John F. Kennedy or John Lennon. If Yoko wanted to hear from John, she'd have to ask me. I need permission, and I ask a few questions about the person with birthday and date of death to qualify. And I always get a hint because there's tons of spirits out there. But if I'm going for one, I have a technique that I learned. God gave it to me, how to do it. And I would do 4 or 5 a day for months. And then on the radio, I mean, it was nonstop.
One of my guests, Raymond, he come back from his NDE seeing cancer in people.
Yeah, we're given gifts to help. I choose at this, I have a lot of people wanting me to channel. I'm kind of afraid of it now. I'm afraid of what it'll do to me, even though the beauty is giving someone else comfort and closure. And confidence to know the spirit's there, right? But yeah, some see cancer. I've told people when they had cancer, and yeah, one had breast cancer. I'm in her book. She testified another one had to have a hysterectomy. A doctor I told me he had prostate cancer. He thought I was nuts. And a month later, he told me he had prostate cancer and he died. Yeah, I don't want that responsibility anymore.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
At the end of my interview with him, I said, well, do you want to, because he's like, you had to give permission.
Oh, he'll scan you?
And he said, I see one thing. He says, I'll tell you later. And he still hasn't told me. And I messaged him.
How long ago was that? How long ago was that?
A few months, couple of months.
You need to ask him. We can't leave somebody hanging like that. That's an anxiety provoking and anticipation. He owes that much to you.
Yeah, I don't know if you just don't want to tell me or just like,
But
I can go to the doctor, just tell me.
Open the door and say something. Oh, so-and-so said this about you. Well, who? Oh, I can't tell you. What they say? I'm not going to tell you. Well, then why bring it up? It's that gnawing feeling of why. No, that's not cool. So like when I channeled people one time, I was puking in the morning and I called my client. I said, look, I can't do this. I've been sick all day. She goes, oh, my friend who you're going to channel had stomach cancer. So I was puking, okay? Or one time I had such a horrible headache. Well, they had a brain aneurysm when they died. Another one, I didn't sleep for 3 days, up and down, up and down. Oh, my husband had sleep apnea. I pick up the spirits. I'm that sensitive. And I've been told I was more descriptive than Sylvia Brown. I had a lot of her people at a time after she passed. It's cool. It's fun. Then I go, how did I know all of that? I read the testimonies. I go, how did I do that? Because I'm so different now. I guess I still could limit myself, but to do it as a career, no. I love working with people, their DNA, nutrition to keep them healthy, get them out of potential diseases in the future. I love the clinical aspect of health, as well as doing the psychic work with the predictions or relationships, therapeutic. Spiritual therapeutic. Mm-hmm. It just evolved. I mean, I've been doing it 30 years. It's a long time.
I like it too that you're still Jewish. Like this didn't change your religion, you know, and it's not my choice, but just people say, so I'm no longer this anymore or that. And I'm thinking, well, why? Like, but that's up to them. But.
I'm still Jewish, but culturally, I didn't come up in a religious background anyway. Majority of the relatives were killed in Auschwitz and Dachau, my mom's side of the family. So we have a very small family. My mom's gone. My grandfather committed suicide when I was 2.5. So the whole family broke when I was very young. And then there was another suicide. The uncle committed suicide, and then my mom's brother committed suicide. So there's a lot of tragedy. But as far as like cultural events or Hanukkah or Passover and Rosh Hashanah dinner, yes, we would observe. But going to temple all the time, no. Do I still wear my Star of David? Yes. I've had it since I was 8 years old. And I mean, I don't wear it every day, but I wear it a lot. And I identify, and yet spiritually, there's more than Judaism. There's more than Christianity. There's more than Buddhism. There's more than Hinduism. There's 3,200 religions on the planet. Everybody has their theory of what's right or wrong, or how to get to God. And when you take away all of the conditions and eat meat, don't eat meat, divorce, don't divorce, you know, whatever, it's still finding yourself with your God. Can I recite the poem I always recite? Sure. It helps people. There's a poem I've read on all my radio shows. It's on my website. It's on my infomercial. I did an infomercial and I had Kris Jenner be my spokesperson. It's on YouTube for my candles with wicks of wisdom. But people want to know what God is. Like with you, they go, well, you still, what if your beliefs are? Well, yeah, but it changes because you're just one with the planet now. You're not in a group. So it says there's a child looking for God. It says, God, it's called God, Are You Real? It's an old Sanskrit poem from the 1200s. And it says, God, speak to me. And the child whispered, God, speak to me. And the meadowlark sang, but the child did not hear. So the child said, God, speak to me. And a star shone brightly, but the child did not see. So the child said, God, speak to me. And the thunder rolled across the sky, but the child did not listen. So the child said, show me a miracle. And a child was born, but the child did not know. So the child said, touch me, God, show me you're real. Whereupon God reached down and touched the child, but the child brushed the butterfly away and walked away unknowingly. If you see the blanket behind me, it's all butterflies. My website's all butterflies. I have necklaces that are all butterflies. One person when I was on the radio gave me a baseball cap with a pin of a butterfly. I still have it because I see butterflies as a link of God. So you can be driving in the car or going to the bank or outside in the garden, taking just whatever. And all of a sudden you're thinking something, Peggy, and you're not sure if it's right, wrong, what to do, or you're thinking about somebody who's gone or a pet or something. And all of a sudden a butterfly, a little white butterfly, a little yellow monarch, something pops up. And that's the confirmation, the synchronicity right there. There you are, connect. It doesn't have to be Jesus and Moses coming off the mountain and going to temple with the everlasting light. Yes, it's all beautiful ceremonies. I've been to church. I've been to temple. I've been to Buddha. I've been to Thailand. I've seen it. I've been to Japan. Everybody has a cultural thing that you connect with. I do it with the butterfly and teach people that God's as simple as a butterfly. Somebody's trying to become psychic, become spiritual. It's like metaphysics. Dr. Carl Jung, coined the term synchronicity. He studied with Freud and then branched into the metaphysics and the spirituality and the different aspects of ego and personality. So a lot of what I do is kind of based on him, but my own thing taken from what other people have said. And a lot of what I do, Socrates said. It's not new. It's just being delivered because generation after generation, we go through it. And going back to the candles, I do candle magic using herbs, oils, and powders to obtain certain results, not like you see on Etsy and some of the markets today. Everybody's into candle magic. 20 years ago, it was all spooky. But I studied Kabbalah for a while with a Hasidic rabbi. I did not become Hasidic, did not want to become Hasidic, but we're reading the Bible, or the Zohar, it was called, Old Ancient Judaism. And it was a whole chapter on candles. And I said, Rabbi, he goes, yes, Linda, came from somewhere. So it's not like it's new in our generation. It's been around 4,000 years, It's just we in this incarnation are delivering to this population. Your messages to your people are hearing you now. 25 years ago, when I was on radio, that generation, whoever heard me then, and they may be searching now, because we just go through time. The message is more or less the same. It hasn't changed. It doesn't change colors or form. It just is.
I heard you mention on another podcast how you had saw your brain and how it works.
And the
That
four
was
dimensions. Wow, you did remember that. Geez, I forgot about that. That was the day of the white light with the car accident, the night. And when I got on the pavement, I said, they want me off the planet. I forgot about that. That's good. It was like a pie cutter, Peggy. And I literally remember my head opening. I didn't open, but in my brain, in my eyes, I could see mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional quarters of the brain. And I remember trying to put that together as to what we all are in mind, body, spirit. I need to take note of that. That's a new chapter. I forgot about that. But who knows if it's real? Who knows if it's accurate? I'm not a neurologist. I'm not a brain surgeon. But there was something I was shown that night in February or January when I totaled the car.
I was shown something in high school one day. It was early of my senior year, or might have been late my junior year. I got really upset one day and I was like, I've had it. I'm quitting school, which something I swore I was never going to do. And I got my books on my locker and I went in and I tossed them on the guidance counselor's desk and I said, I quit. And I wanted him to call my mother and have her come get me. I'm done. And
Yeah.
he said, I know it's hard changing schools because we change schools. I had to change schools like every year, sometimes twice a year, and or at least move twice a year, even if it was the same district. And he said, I know it's hard changing schools. I know it's hard making friends. He said, I'm just going to leave you alone here for a while. And he walked out the door, and when he shut the door, he flipped his sign on, went to lunch, and he left and turned off the light, which was the perfect thing he could have done.
How'd you think?
Yeah. Because, and even to this day, dim lights, I mean, just calm me right now.
Yep.
I just get like freaked out over bright lights after a while. And the dim lights, being alone in this small office, and him just recognizing, I know why you're hurting. And then walked out. And he didn't accept me, my bad attitude. And I sat there.
That's why he was good at his job.
He was good. And he'd always took a special interest in me too. And so we kind of had a relationship. And so he did
He's
that.
probably more spiritual than you know.
But what made me think when you said that about your seeing your brain is I sat there, and as I thought about things, and because that just like released my stress, and I went in this calm, and I just appreciated his kindness and that time being alone. And my mind started doing this thing, like I was not seeing like a brain, but I was seeing a kaleidoscope, like very clear. And it was this one nice thing this one guy said to me, this one nice thing this bus driver said to me, all these small kind things that had been said to me all come to me. And I could see this kaleidoscope that was just like moving and bending.
Wow.
With different colors and designs, how a kaleidoscope is. And I just saw this as if it was my mind changing and evolving and wrapping my mind around it's going to be okay. And I never forgot it.
That's amazing. That's a great story. Yeah, the brain is fascinating, and we only use maybe 10% of it. We don't even use the full capacity. If we could use the full capacity, we'd be like a big computer. We are a big computer. From PTSD, I've had ketamine treatments, which is a beautiful treatment to replenish brain cells after trauma, after depression, after PTSD. And it has helped me clarify a lot of where I get stuck from the past. Like right now, every time I talk about the plane crash, there's a plane going over. I can hear it.
Oh.
It's kind of like God saying, here we are. Yeah, you're right. That kind of like, here's the symbolic, just like the butterfly, where you are in sync with the universe. So that impression from then, that man must have been more spiritually grounded or aware. What year was that? Do you remember?
I graduated in 79, so it's probably 78.
All right. There was the movement was just starting to open, the consciousness movement. So he was ahead of himself, or ahead of the curve, to have been able to identify spiritually the psychological trauma or pressure of a student. That's great.
And
Do you know where to find him today?
I was just getting ready to say this. I guess the word of synchronicity of life is, so that say it was in 78. In 2000, I was working at Memorial Hospital. And I happened to go down to the snack shop and got a milkshake. And while I'm in line, I hear a woman talking to the cashier, and I realize this is that guidance counselor's wife. And he is a patient in the hospital. He had just had his leg removed due to diabetes.
Oh my God, Peggy, I just got chills.
So I said to her, "Could I go see Mr. Kelly?" And she goes, "Oh, he would love that. He would love to see one of his students." And so I went up with her. And so she's like, "Peggy's here." And, and I talked to him, and I just spoke from my heart, which at that time wasn't, I do now all the time, but back then it wasn't part of who I am. It's very close, but I spoke from my heart, and I let him know how much that incident meant to me that day when I walked in and I was going to quit school, and how he handled that.
You made his whole day. You qualified his life. A lot of times he may have sacrificed a limb, but you gave back his soul, his heart. And it's all part of the soul circle. I call it the soul circle. There's no accident. You happen to be working in a hospital that this man was a patient. Is he still alive today? That was like over 40 years ago.
No.
He's gone.
Yeah. And in fact, girls at school at that time, they told lies about him. He was such a nice guy. Those are the people that he was getting bullied, and he was a guidance counselor and he was literally bullied.
And then they
And
say he was attacking him sexually or something.
yeah. And I always stood up for him.
Yeah, but it's true.
Well, I stood up for him. And then when years later, and
That's why he lost the leg. You sacrifice when you do something really bad, something else happens. That's all part of karmic law.
in the 90s, I was a child abuse investigator, and a case happened, and there was allegations, and I can't say much, but I've just always defended him. But there was also a time that I wondered why, because he had kept bringing me in his office. Like I say, we had a close relationship, and he said, I set you up an apartment and you're going to be a nurse. You're going to go to nursing school. And I'm thinking, I'm dumb in school. I couldn't be a nurse. And how did he set me up an apartment? I'd never heard of then about how you get grants and go to college if you're on ADC, the poor kids, how college is paid for. I didn't know any of that back then. And so I thought he was lying to me. Plus, I stepped back a bit because he set me up an apartment. And
Is this the same we're talking about the same counselor?
And I felt like, do I owe him for setting me up an apartment? I know nowadays that you can get an apartment and a car and pay for and all those things, but your parents have to do that for you. They have to set up, your grants, and then, the things you get help with, like apartments, the money for, like, say, student loan, all those things, there'd be extra money because I was poor that I would probably have that stuff, but he did it all for me without my knowledge. And so I just got this picture of this man coming, his guidance counselor coming to my apartment because he set this up. And so that was the only red flag I ever had about him. But, at the time I appreciated that he said, you are meant to be a nurse. You've got to be a nurse. And I said, I got you grants, you're going to college. But he did all this without my parents' knowledge, without my knowledge. I don't know.
I do know, because I can read it. I can hear him.
So.
The illusions of life.
Yeah, but I am glad though that I was able to be there at the right time at the sex shop,
got there.
And thank him for helping me that day that I did not quit school.
Look at you now.
Yeah. So what do you make of the voice? I mean, we all talk about it, whether somebody's
inner self, the inner voice.
The voice that says, like, don't go there, or you need to do this. The voice we hear during our near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, well, I think it's the voice of God. We all have intuition. We're not all psychic. And that's what gets me going, because a lot of people, I get psychic abilities. Oh, I'm a this, I'm a that. I said, no, you're not. Because if you're really clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, you wouldn't have to say, I am. You have to prove it. You just are it. Okay. So we all have that inner voice that speaks of reason, whether it's God, the God self, yourself, however you want to define it. It gets so convoluted with mom, dad, brother, sister, teachers, friends, bullying, the negatives, the positives. You get lost with what's real? What do I feel? Who am I? Right? What's the truth? Be still, for I am God. And for the moment, you're in the center. I don't sit on my knees. I don't do yoga. I don't pray every day, but I talk to God constantly. And when you're quiet enough, the one voice will come in, just like when you're on the highway. You were talking about a potential accident. You knew something. Now, that was your intuition, or was it a psychic hit? Something warned you. I could be driving here in LA, and so is traffic, as you probably know. And something inside to say, don't go that way, go this way. And I won't listen to the judgment call. And then I'm in traffic, or I'm behind a truck that I got to turn around and go a different route because this truck's going to take forever to get where we're going, or there's an obstacle. The voice is helping you avoid the obstacle if you learn how to listen.
Yeah. My
biggest voice when I was leaving for San Francisco State back in 1973, I stood in the mirror and I heard the little voice, I don't want to go. I knew I did not want to go, but I didn't tell my parents I don't want to go. I didn't want to hurt their feelings. Well, I hurt me. So we're not hurting anybody else by not being honest. We're hurting ourselves. And that's what most people don't see, because we're always about pleasing the next, having friends, having lovers, having people adore us. But if we don't vibe with them, there's usually a message. A lot of people will walk away, dump you, batter you, bully you, block you today. You know, you're just blocked. You don't even have communication as to why. But as much as it hurts and it's confusing during it, and it's happened to me many times, especially kids from high school. We're 50 years, 51 now, and the class before me is having their 50th in July, even though they're 52 years out because of COVID. But that was the group I hung out with. And I'm not going to the reunion, but all the emotions are coming back. The memories are coming back. The what if, oh, I shouldn't. How come I got left behind? Well, I started thinking maybe I really didn't get left behind. That group may have stunted me from all these things. I became a celebrity in the psychic world, and I've been on radio and TV forever. And who knew? Rather than just being married and working and raising a family, I was called to redirect for whatever reason, as you. We don't know why all the time these things happen, but after fighting or working through the emotions or the clarity or the confusion, that voice comes in. And you know, or I know, it's the truth. So God's rejection is God's protection, right? You're being rejected for something or person or group or job, something you want is no. But these other things happen. So when I let go, let God, I just kind of go with the flow, even though it's not what I think I'm supposed to have. But it works out in my favor. Same thing with you. That voice is going to say yes or no. And if you let it happen without controlling it, it's going to be better than you thought, even though it may not be what you wanted. So it's the same thing. That intuitive voice is yours alone. No one else has it for you but you.
Yeah.
But we all have it. It gets locked up. People drink, people do drugs, people obsess on psychics, shopping, sex, whatever. There's always something to go outside ourselves to fix it or numb it. A lot of times the drugs and alcohol will make that voice either louder, the guilt gets worse, or it compounds to the conflict and the confusion because it's the yin yang, yes, no, the battering, the bullying versus the loving side of self, you know, the black, white, yes, no, yes, no. And then it gets confusing and then nothing gets done because the overthinking happens. So when you, like you're saying, when you get quiet, just like in that room that day, when you got quiet, same thing, we will hear our inner world and know what to do. There's times I'm so confused. I mean, I can't get going for my day for maybe hours until it all works its way through. And then I just dive in. I'm not one to get up at 7 in the morning and hit the desk by 9. I can't. I'm not wired that way.
Yeah.
But
I used
when
to
it,
be, but my energy levels.
yeah,
I need
changed.
more rest.
Yeah, well, because the work you do too, when we're doing spiritual psychic work, people that aren't in our world or frequency, Peggy, as you know, they don't understand how much we are drained because we pick up them. Just like when I was telling you, I put all that back in my thighs and it turned into tumors from the energy that I didn't understand back then. You know, same thing channeling people, the energy changed my face, my body, my world, the friendships. It got ugly for me. That doesn't mean the next medium is going to have that. Some people didn't put their whole mind, body, spirit into it. They just kind of do it. That's great. That's not me. You have your gifts. You have your talents. You have your intuition. You started out somehow. He saw in you the healer in you. He was a healer of sorts, which was able to get you calm. He wanted you to be a nurse. You became a nurse. So your nursing is healing people, helping
I didn't
people.
become a nurse.
Oh, you didn't? But you were working in the
I
hospital?
worked
What
in a
did you-
hospital. It wasn't a nurse. It was a patient representative. It was like a mediator.
Oh, okay. So you were still with the people.
Yeah.
Okay. But and then how did you end up going into more of the spiritual? What do you actually do? Do you work as a
Well, I was a counselor, social worker, investigator, those kind of things.
okay, it's still the healing arts, yeah,
Yeah.
of sorts.
But I mean, mental hospital, emergency room, women's prison, you know, child protection, those kind of things. but drug treatment.
Yep.
But then the kids grew up and I wanted to go with my husband on the road because we've been married, but really didn't have any time together because he was always on the road working like me months at a time. And we was like, we either split up or we'd be together. I don't know what to do here because this isn't working. And so he says, well, come with me on the road. So we took our last two, we still had a home because we had adopted a bunch, we was down to two. And so then after they got in high school or graduated high school, then I was like, okay, do I, go back to my old career? I, really don't want to, but I found I could work with my husband, which I could work 1 month and get what, I got a year in social work. And so I started working with him just for financial reasons and to be with my husband. And it's not my career goal,
What was it that you did? What does he do?
Pipeline.
What?
Pipeline. I was a pipeliner.
Oh my God, that's the total opposite of anything. Okay. Yeah, you were out there. That's hard labor.
Yeah, good money though. But he's a welder and I was his welder helper. And so they had paid for our hotel and our meals and all this stuff. And we lived
You
on
were
the road.
together.
Yeah, it was blast.
True soulmates live, love, work together.
So I did that for a while. And then now he's doing local jobs because he's getting older and getting ready to retire. So, so actually how I got started doing like, as far as this podcast is I went to a job. I was there one day last year and it was raining and I was soaking wet. And these guys was all packed on this porch. And because of COVID, I don't go stand with these men for number one. Number two, it's all these guys on this porch and they're packed. And it was still dark. It was early morning. I'm like, I'm not going up there with the men. I'm going to sit here in the rain. I'm sitting here in the rain. And I've worked all day the day before, but now I gotta go to this training and I'm waiting for this door to open. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this because I was supposed to work with my husband. Once I got there, they said, oh no, you can't, you got to do something else. And I'm like, crap, I don't want to work without him because I've done it before and I don't like it. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to go home and I'm going to work on that podcast.
Good for you.
That's what I want to do.
You had a passion. Good for you. So if the messages for people, just follow your passion, whatever it is, if it's music, if it's podcast communication, writing, if it's welding, or if it's modeling, or if it's teaching or whatever. Everybody has a purpose, but sometimes that purpose changes and sometimes that purpose is redirected. And sometimes, you're off on one track and the universe is going to say, nope, we need you over here.
Yeah. I said, well, back on the podcast, when you were talking about something made me think of it is when we're going somewhere we're not meant to go. It's like, here's this flow and this river and we keep getting pushed out and we think at the time, but I want to fit in, but we keep getting pushed out. And so this little stream starts off to the side and that makes a path. And then we flow right through that.
Yep.
We're on the
Gotta
path
stay in the flow. Staying in the flow. Absolutely. Staying in the flow. And
because when you're in school, they say, back when in the 70s, they say, do you want to be a nurse, a teacher, or a secretary? I'm like, that's my only choices, and being like a medium like you, I'm sure that wasn't on the career choice.
No. And I've told people this was not how I dreamed. It was either going to be like Joni Mitchell or I was going to find the cure to cancer or colds or something. It's certainly not psychic, spiritual, metaphysical or whatnot, but it's what happened. And along the way, I created new opportunities. So first the plane crash opened me up psychically. I had to learn what all that was. And then I became a healer and then I became a medium and then I had all the surgeries and then I got into radio and then I got into candle magic and then I got my PhD and then I was on TV and then it just kept going. I kept going with the flow. And now I've got I'm sitting in a radio station studio that we built here in my home where I'll be starting my own show. If people want to go to lindasalvin.com, I stream old shows to begin with from 03 and 2000, all my old shows, they're still there. And then new ones will come up. And then of course, StreamYard and Zoom, YouTube. It's just the new evolution. We didn't have this in the 70s, let alone the 80s, right? It just started in the 90s. And then, especially with lockdown, all of a sudden everything's online. It's just like everything was planned, but we didn't really know what the plan was. But how did they make so many masks off so quickly? How did the Zoom just happen to take off so quickly? How did it all change? You had bamboo utensils at the restaurant and tents. It just happened. How did it all happen so fast? Is it odd or is it God? Was it planned? there's so much, and it doesn't matter. You just have to take care of you. And to go back to that voice that Peggy's talking about, just trust and watch. Just watch. I tell people, watch for the butterflies and let them guide you on your journey. That's how I live.